I'm just done hearing about it. This whole Drake May being a bum thing. I'm so done hearing about it. At this time, I mean, how stupid are all of you? Pop, what's going on, man?
Son.
Another weekend, another pod. Just a few things happened last week. Pretty quiet time for the Commanders, I'd say, right? Nothing too crazy.
Only signed 42 free agents.
Oh my God. So go back a few pods when I said that there's going to be major roster overhaul, and Pop went, no, he pushed back on me. The boys are clearing house. Everybody.
When did I push back on you?
It's on tape. Everybody's gone.
I'd like you to produce that tape.
Anybody and everybody's gone. Sam Howell, gone. Chase Young, gone. Montez Sweat, gone. Cam Curl, gone. I'm just going through all the big names going into last year. Everybody you thought mattered on this team in the wind. Carson Wentz, gone. It's getting wacky out here, man. Cam Curl left for the Rams. Who else? Kendall Fuller to Miami. It's been pretty wild, man. Everybody's in the wind. But we obviously, Payne, Allen, and McLaurin really seem to be the only three that are safe at this juncture.
Sam Cosmi,
that's true. He's still on his rookie deal.
Brian
Robertson. The guys that are on their rookie deals, of course. But I saw a pretty wild tweet yesterday before we get into it that I just want to throw at you here. I know you'd love it when I throw you off script. Just want to throw something at you. There is not a single player from the 2020 NFL draft still on this team.
Is that Ron's first?
Ron's first draft, 2020. Not a single player. That was the year Chase Young, Antonio Gibson, a lot
That's
of those
crazy.
Guys. Not a single player.
Well, so we're moving forward.
Yeah, make what you will of that. There's only really one thing to make of that, but just pretty crazy to think about. They are completely cleaning house. The motto seems to be that they're not even gonna bother trying to figure out if the guys that have been around here are still interested in staying around. They're just gonna go get somebody else. And I think I've said it a million times, but with the record, I think it checks out. I think that's, and at the end of the day, a team that was never better than 8-1 for 4 years and ended up bottoming out the way they bottomed out last year. I think everybody and everything has got to be on the table. So I'm all in favor.
You could see the strategy, right? It's some younger signings that got 2 or 3 year deals, and then a couple of 1 year deals with some vet guys, some prove it deals.
Yep.
And they still got tons of room on the salary cap. I mean, both for this year and next year. I think there was a quote that the projected salary cap number next year is $100 million. So it gives them the opportunity to do what Adam Peters said he wanted to do, which was build through the draft, but still put a competitive roster out there. And it's cool to kind of hear, player after player in their press conferences talk about they wanted to be here because of the coaching staff, because of Adam Peters, because of the new ownership. So that's cool.
Yeah.
It seems like it's and once again, a destination that players want to be at. And I think it's kind of interesting, despite, the facilities and some of the other things being rated so lowly, you could see what's important is that the players really feel like we're building something here, which is great to see.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the Dan Quinn effect, honestly. I think they trust what's going on with Peters, and I think players obviously know more about the front offices and all that, and they see, they got the guy from San Fran over there. Okay, that's serious. And then they see Dan Quinn, and Dan Quinn obviously, for the lack of reputation he had among the casual football fan in February, he has all the reputation in the world with people inside the NFL and with actual players. Yeah, it's all good stuff. But what do you say we get down to the nitty gritty, Pop?
Let's do it.
Hit the scouting report. So essentially, I'm just going to go through these super rapid fire. and then we can break things down, break out what sticks out to us, and we're going to get into the depth chart and all that stuff in a little bit.
Sounds good.
But so let's go through all the names. So the first name, maybe the only Italian commander next year, unless me and Pop. I don't know. Linebacker seems like it's sorted. I don't think we're
honorary
for
commanders
tryouts anymore. Yeah, honorary commanders. Nick Allegretti at guard from Kansas City signed. Dorrance Armstrong, defensive end from Dallas, signed. Tyler Biadasz, center from Dallas, signed. Jeremy Chin, safety, Carolina, signed. Zach Ertz, tight end from Arizona, signed. You guys know him from his time in Philly. Dante Fowler, defensive end, signed. Frankie Louvu, linebacker, signed. Marcus Mariota, signed. Brandon McManus, kicker. Tyler Ott, long snapper. Anthony Pittman, linebacker. Bobby Wagner, signed. That is everybody.
That is everybody. You're right.
That is everybody. And then we also brought back, we re-signed a few guys, 2 guys at the moment, 3. So 2 guys technically have been re-signed. The second one I actually didn't know until looking at this. And then 3 in total. So you've seen Jeremy Reeves been re-signed, safety, mostly a special teams guy, and just like a big locker room presence for the team right now. And when I say mostly special teams guy, widely regarded as the best special teamer in the NFL. So that's not a knock. Let's get that straight. But Jeremy Reeves, love Revo, and F.A. Obata, the defensive end, who we saw flash at points and I think is a great depth piece at a position of need right now. So I'm happy to have him back. High character guy from what I understand as well. And then you have Jamison Crowder is still we've heard that he's re-signed, and I'm pretty sure that's official, but it's just not officially on the Commanders' website yet, which means they're probably still dotting I's, crossing T's, barring like a J.D. McKissick situation from a couple years ago. I think he's coming back as well, right?
I think the report that I saw was like he's expected to sign with the team. So
he should be back.
Maybe he hasn't gotten in and actually inked the contract yet or something like that.
Yeah, he's got other obligations. He's a busy man.
Yeah.
Who knows? But so do you want to go through we'll go through the names of the guys who signed elsewhere, but do you want to go through the guys that are still unrestricted free agents? Or do we want to just get into the guys that left?
I think you can rattle them off pretty quick, but get into the guys that left next.
Yeah, so let's start with the guys that left. So Cam Curl signed with the Rams. Obviously, that was a big one. You also saw the figure for what they signed him for, which was not a lot of money, but now reports are coming out that Cam was done in Washington by the end of last season. He was checked out. The fact that there was no negotiations getting done like kind of rubbed him the wrong way, and just that was it. He was done after the way last season went, which after the dog and pony show that last season was, I can't blame him for that. Jacoby Brissett signed with the Patriots. Sadiq Charles signed with the Tennessee Titans, and Antonio Gibson signed with the New England Patriots as well. So that's everybody that's signed elsewhere. And then you have, I'm not going to name all these guys, honestly.
Maybe just some of the top names, yeah.
Some of the notable guys, Tyler Larson, Cornelius Lucas, both still unrestricted free agents, have not been picked up by anybody else, also have not been picked up by the team. And Jamison Crowder, still technically UFA. He's probably coming back. But otherwise, I mean, I don't know if Byron Pringle, Derek Gore, and Alex Armour are moving the needle for you, but there you go. We got through all the names. So we've done all that. Pop, impressions, feelings, what do you think? I kind of want to focus on the guys we've signed. I think we know what we're getting out of the guys that we've brought back, and I think
I agree.
At this point, the guys that are gone are gone. I'm not really interested. But
I think.
Go ahead.
I think it's some good things. I think my thoughts are, I'd say first in terms of offensively and weapons. I think if you can get a healthy, Zach Ertz, and I think that he could be a real asset in terms of I know it was a little bit low on him, but I've heard a few of his pressers and things like that, and I've gotten a little bit more excited with Zach. But I think he could be a guy that could really be an asset to this team. And we didn't talk about the kid from San Diego. He's not listed on here either, right? Like,
Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler. That's
Yeah, I
interesting.
guess he's not listed on this as well, but that's
Yeah, so
done.
Austin Eckler is the other guy I thought loved. Like I was drawing a little bit of a blank there, but with Ertz and Eckler, I think the weaponry that we have on offense has already been upgraded, right?
Yeah,
And I think there's an obvious feeling that they like what we have at receiver, right? Which we talked about going in. They like what we have at D tackle on the roster. To me, those are some of the obvious things that you see. But I think coming in, if we can shore up that offensive line, whoever that quarterback ends up being, which we're going to get into later, stay tuned. Uh, QBX, as it's famously known, we have a QBX every year.
oh my god.
How many years in a row has it been QBX? Crazy, but
This will
hopefully,
be the last year because this kid's gonna get at least a couple years. So
hopefully,
yeah,
hopefully. But I think that that's one thought I have is that the weapons that we've added with Eckler and Ertz, that's really gonna help, assuming they could stay healthy and be on the field. And I think I think defensively, certainly, you can look at we filled in a lot of the holes and the gaps. You know, um, certainly like Luvu as a signing, Jerry McChin, is a guy that's been highly regarded. Did you realize he was second in Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year votes behind Chase Young, right,
yeah,
in that year? So he's a guy that could potentially be a really good player for us to replace Cam Curl. So yeah, I like what they've done on defense. There seems to be fewer holes to plug on defense at this point. We'll get into the roster a little bit. Um, but overall, I think you've got to say in terms of the approach, there's a clear strategy in place in terms of how they're approaching this. They're not necessarily hitting that big splash, but in a way, I think there's some splashes, in the signings in terms of guys that
yeah,
could really make a difference on this team, and lots of starters, have been
yeah,
signed, right?
yeah. I'm a big fan. For me, the Biadish signing is probably the biggest one.
That's a great one.
Um,
Yeah,
that's a really big one for me. I mean, obviously the big names are Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler, Bobby Wagner, but these are all names that are probably past their prime, right? Austin Eckler, maybe it was the high ankle that was the issue last year. Maybe he's lost a step. We'll find out, right? But Biadish for me is definitely Biadish and Luvu are the two. They're the least sexy of the bunch, probably the least sexy signings. No disrespect to the gentleman, but I'd say Biadish to me is the most exciting because you're pairing a stud veteran center with a young quarterback. And we saw the disaster that
smart.
was Nick
Yeah,
Gates last year. And the center is like the quarterback of the offensive line. A lot of offenses, centers are responsible for adjusting protections, identifying blitzers, those kinds of things. And last year we saw Sam was unable to do that. And it was a real issue in with Sam's inability to identify the pass rush and adjust the line, he was getting no help from his centers either. And we saw that when they switched to Larson later in the year, we saw that improve. A more savvy veteran mind, but obviously Larson's just not as good as a guy like Biadish. So I think that is a really smart signing that football people make. It's not a sexy or a flashy signing, but it is a very smart, like, it's almost like, putting new tires on your car when you're supposed to put new tires on your car. It's like you don't want to spend the money, but it's exactly what you should do to take care of things the right way. It's like going to get your oil change when it's due. It's like you got to have a good center if we have offensive line problems like this, and I think it's the right way to go.
great analogy, son.
I was grasping at straws that I don't know if it'll come
Now,
together for the listeners.
of course, we didn't mention the big news was just the Sam Howell trade, but we kind of covered that in our
Yeah,
last emergency pod. So you can hear everything you want to hear about that, but didn't want to leave out in terms of the guys that are no longer back. The fact that
yeah,
our starting QB1 from last year is no longer here. But yeah, I think overall, if you were going to give this free agency situation a grade up to this point, what grade would you put on it?
B,
Yeah, BB plus sounds about right. I'm
solid
going to
B.
throw you a little curveball here. Who's your least favorite signing out of this group? Which one did you
Ooh,
leave you scratching your head the most? I think you know mine, but what's your least one or two favorites of this group?
Okay. I don't love McManus, but whatever, it's a kicker. It doesn't matter that much to me. I don't love the Eckler signing, to be honest with you.
Really? I love that signing.
I just worry, like,
do we need to go to counseling after the last pod?
Have to.
And now you're talking about Austin Eckler. You don't like that signing.
The Eckler
we signing disagreed on Hurts. What's going on here?
The Eckler signing makes me nervous, and the Jeremy Chin signing makes me a little nervous as well. The Jeremy Chin signing, it's a 1-year deal, and it's a guy that, since that rookie year, he shot out of a cannon, and you're going, holy crap, this is the next Earl Thomas, and he's just been hurt.
Yeah, a lot of injury
since
issues.
Then. So I'm really worried about that because we can't afford that in our secondary where they're at right now.
They got some work to do in the secondary still, for sure.
I would have preferred like a Simmons there, personally. An older guy that's got more of a reputation for being durable, but that's fine. They wanted to go young, take a swing. I don't hate that. The Eckler thing, he came back and was playing off a high ankle last year, but he looked really slow at the end of the year. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that it's just a high ankle sprain and he's not going to have the workload here, so he's going to be able to stay fresh. And also the Chargers were literally last in the league in run block win rate last year. They were terrible as a run blocking unit. So I really want to give him the benefit of the doubt, and especially those games he's back. Like, I'm almost talking myself out of not liking this. Herbert was out during that period of time, so you really just had to stop the run. But, yeah, that's where I'm at on my least favorite signings. But
I think for me it's easy. It's Marcus Mariota. I've listened to some other people talk since the last pod. I just feel like the backup situation would have been better with Sam than Marcus. I actually feel like Sam's a better player than Marcus. So that one I just can't. I don't know. I just don't like.
Pop can't let that one go, man.
I don't like Marcus. It's less. I just don't like him as a player. He's been. He's done nothing but lose ball games, and I get it. He's your backup, and that's what you get for backups. And you had great takes on that on the last pod, but my least favorite of all of this is Marcus. And I get, in terms of just in general, I understand the roster turnover. I understand them wanting to establish a new culture, and if you bring enough of the old guys back, are you really able to do that? So for the most part, I love what they've done. I do.
Yeah.
And I can understand some of the arguments around the quarterback situation. And I think it's part to do with that culture and that, wanting to change. And I think, I was thinking about something earlier, like with a Bobby Wagner. It's not so much people get into culture and they get into leadership. But leadership isn't as much about what you say. It's about what you do. It's about being the first guy in the building. It's about being the hardest worker. It's about playing your position the right way and doing your assignments. And when they could see a Bobby Wagner lead by example like that, like maybe London Fletcher asks, and he talked about London Fletcher in his press conference, which is great awareness on his part. That's what the value of someone like that brings to your team. So it's that leadership by example more so than it is what you say. It's more about what you do. And so anyway, now another quick one for you. So we're throwing some curveballs and we'll wrap this segment here real quick. What does this situation, also projecting in the draft, knowing you're going to go QB at number 2, knowing that you got 6 picks in the top 100. So, offensive tackle's probably still in play and you're going to fill some other holes. Where do you put the over-under win total for this team at this point? Where are you? Way too early. We're going to get into that more later.
Yeah.
Where's that early vibe over-under for the boy?
5.5.
That's bad. That's rough.
You can't put it higher than that.
That's rough.
This was the worst team in football last year. This was the worst team in football last year. I mean, we won 4 games, 2 of which were a 2-0 start against the worst 2 teams in the NFL at that point. I mean, we won a game against Josh Dobbs by 5 points at home by the skin of our nuts. There's just no, like...
I get it. There's a lot to come back off last season, but I also feel like, they're they're one season removed from a 500 team. And I know they've purged a lot of those guys off the roster. But I'm a little sized about what I'm seeing. I think this could be a good a competitive team. It depends on quarterback. It's always as the person, our coach not to be named anymore, said. It's all about the quarterback. But I feel like they've put a competitive team together. They got a few holes to fill. And it's interesting to see what they do at O-tackle. I personally believe they're going to address that in the draft for the most part. But another Ronism. But I think re-signing a Cornelius Lucas would be a real smart move as a backup, at least, or as a guy that's capable to start. I think that'd be or another Cornelius Lucas type, if there's one out there, right?
Maybe there's one out there you like better than Cornelius specifically, but a veteran tackle generally available, can play both sides. So if the plan is to go young at left tackle and that doesn't quite work out, we can move Cornelius to left tackle and move that guy to the right tackle, whatever. But that's the general breakdown there. I'm with you. I would love to bring back Cornelius Lucas. I think I'd rather see him at right tackle than Andrew Wiley. I'll tell you that much.
Well, maybe what we'll do on our next pod is we'll kind of get into a little bit of that depth chart and what that roster looks like. Maybe that'll change your win total, right? We'll kind of get into what does it look like. There's certainly some holes to fill, obviously, at offensive tackle. How do you feel about Andrew Wiley being your starter right now at right tackle again next year? Maybe they see better than we see. I did hear one analyst talk about that and say he was, the thing with Wiley was that he was good most of the time, but when he was bad, he was catastrophically bad. He just got beat so bad, which doesn't give me a ton of comfort, to be honest, because if you're good 8 out of 10 snaps, but those 2 were just horrendous.
Or sack fumbles.
And I think defensively, I think they've got some work still to do. They need to find one more defensive lineman. Secondary is a concern. I think you could argue that you need, both a cornerback and a safety, as you mentioned earlier. So some holes to fill, but they've done a real good job plugging it up. But speaking of quarterback, I think we need to talk because the boy in our prep very early morning for the kid because he had to get up early and work. And one thing I can tell you about Dom and Pop, we are not morning people. We are not morning people, especially before we've had our espresso.
No, man.
Just don't talk to us. I think our significant others could attest to that.
100%.
But getting into the quarterback, you were getting into your feels. You're a little bit hurt. I don't know what's causing the hurt. Is it Twitter? Is it your text group? But let's talk a little bit about that quarterback and what we think the Commanders should do at number 2.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, it's changing for me every day. But I'll tell you one thing I am done hearing about from all you idiots on Twitter, and some of those idiots are my friends. I'm just done hearing about it. This whole Drake May being a bum thing. I'm so done hearing about it. At this time, I mean, how stupid are all of you? At this time last year, C.J. Stroud was illiterate and Will Levis was flying up draft boards. Will Levis brought 2 women to the draft because he thought he was going to get drafted so high. And he went in the second round because he was a day 2 guy all along. And now the big thing is, Drake May. It's prospect fatigue. We've known for 2 years that this guy was going to be the number 2 draft pick behind Caleb Williams. He did nothing this year to make you think otherwise. We knew that that's what was going to happen. He's a stud. If you went into a lab and built a quarterback, you come out with Drake May. Is he perfect? No. Does he run around like a freak show like Caleb Williams does or Jayden Daniels does? No. Can he throw the ball over the middle like a real NFL quarterback, and does he have a cannon of an arm? Yes. The guy's getting compared to Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert, talent-wise, is about as good of a quarterback as you can get in the league. There is not I don't understand with Drake Maye why we've just decided he doesn't know how to play football anymore. I don't understand. And like for all the like, I think Jayden Daniels is a great player. I would be stoked if we got him. I really would. I think he's a great player. I'd be excited. I was making arguments for him yesterday to a friend of mine that wasn't so hot on him. But for all the like Jayden Daniels highlight reel stands, like look at some of the balls Drake Maye is throwing, number one. If you can't appreciate him, you don't know football that well. And number two, look at the hits Jayden Daniels takes. There's just as much reason for concern with Jayden Daniels as there is with Drake Maye, in my opinion. So I think they're 2A and 2B, you know?
I think there's arguments. Like, and here's where I'm at, any of those top three guys I'm going to be happy with. Because
that's exactly how I'm
going to trust in, Adam Peters and the crew, Kingsbury and Quinn and whoever else is going to be breaking them down because there's a heck of a staff there at this point to make the right decision, right? And if they love Drake Maye, I love Drake Maye. That's the bottom line. I think they all have some flaws. You hear about, Maye's mechanics, at times his footwork,
slow release,
which can be fixed. And then the other one that's more of a concern is some pocket awareness issues, right? Abandoning a clean pocket. What you've heard a lot about with Caleb Williams and Drake Maye and Daniel Jeremiah talked about this quite a bit in an interview with JP Finley, giving credit, but I thought it was a great breakdown, is that if you watch the tape, and this is how at times I felt about Sam, is that if you watch the guy at the top of his, drop, there's nothing there, and, they talked about how USC and Caleb Williams in particular, the other team would have a 3-man rush, which means you're dropping 8 in coverage. And with a 3-man rush, they're pressuring him at the top of his drop. So, those are factors and all of it seems like a bit of it, but there are some flaws or concerns, I would say, with Drake Maye, technically, that you shouldn't just ignore. And some of those things, the one I worry about is that pocket presence thing seems to be, I know that's what you were down on with Sam. And look, the drawing comparisons to Sam and Drake Maye just because they went to the same school is stupid. People did that with C.J. Stroud, too, with all the Ohio State, quarterbacks that haven't done well. That's just dumb. That's just coincidence they went to the same school. But I think that pocket presence issue is one that's been tougher to coach out of guys. And that would be my worry there. But I think, I also think no matter what quarterback we get, I think you're going to see such a drastic difference in the way this quarterback gets coached this year compared to the way our young quarterback got coached last year. And I think that is going to be a difference. And again, I love that Jeremiah interview with JP. Check it out. I think it's on YouTube. He talked about that. He said, you can break it down into chunks, and if you call enough plays, a third of the plays are kind of layups for the quarterbacks, right? There might be screens or, rollouts or things that are real simpler plays to execute. And then you ask him to execute with his legs and some read option stuff or, some called quarterback runs, right? And then, you're going to have to ask them 7 to 10 plays a game to drop back and go through their progressions and go through those reads. And you can build on that. You can take that 7 to 10 plays to 10 to 12 plays in year 2 and blah, blah, blah. That's the right way to develop a player. And I think this coaching staff is going to put this quarterback in position for success. And it almost might not matter who we pick at number 2, that the way they're coached up might put them in position for success. Me personally, I think it's pretty obvious you're a Drake Maye guy, and you're still seeing more Drake Maye than Jayden Daniels.
I'm just.
Who would you pick at number 2? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Who would you pick at number 2?
I genuinely don't have my mind made up yet. I'm just not one of those guys.
To. Gun to head now. You're on the clock. You're on the clock.
Gun to head right now. My concerns about Drake Maye's pocket presence do not outweigh my concerns about the fact that there is literally not enough data on Jayden Daniels throwing over the middle of the field to know whether or not he's effective at it. My concerns I'd rather take Drake May. I'd rather try and fix the pocket presence there because learning how to throw over the middle of the field in the NFL scares the crap out of me. But I'm not sure I have properly weighed in how explosive Jayden Daniels can be with his legs to the whole equation yet. So my point is not that there's such a giant gap between the two of them and Drake May is so much better. My point is that there certainly isn't that giant of a gap in reverse.
I have the best argument I heard this week, and I lean Jayden Daniels, and I don't know particularly why. It's just that exciting skill set. The way
gotta go to couples counseling, you and me, man. This is a rough situation right here.
He does throw the ball really well. He's got way good enough of arm.
Sure,
but
100%.
What they talked about is that if you're Dan Quinn, who would you fear coaching against as a defensive coordinator more? Who would keep you up at night more? Is it a Jayden Daniels that could kill you both with his legs and his arms? Or is it a Drake May? And those quarterback, and Dan Quinn's talked a little bit about those kinds of quarterbacks. Maybe not direct analogy with Jayden to Jayden Daniels, but I remember him talking about, who are the quarterbacks kind of kept him up at night and worried about. And it's similar to like a Lamar. It's probably going to be a slower development in terms of the pocket passing, although he's shown some ability to do it already in the last couple of years at LSU. So I lean Jayden Daniels, but would you make the trade for Caleb Williams? I'll propose a trade to you. Would you do it? Our first this year, one of our seconds, you can either 36th or 40th, and our first next year to move up that one spot, pick Caleb Williams. Would you do it?
I would. I don't think they'll pay all that, but I would do it. Yeah.
I think it's going to be a big price to do it, but
I'm not saying I don't think it'll cost that much. I just don't think this GM group will pay that. But I would do it.
I think I would do it too, only if you believe there is a big jump, which most people do.
I do.
Between him and the second pick. So Dom got in a little bit into his feels there. He had to get that out.
That's good. Stuff off my chest, man.
That's good. I think, at this point you're leaning May. Is that fair to say? I don't know.
I'm leaning it's like 51-49, but sure.
Okay. I'm leaning Daniels. Like I've said a lot of times, this is going to be a ton of fun. With the situation where we've stacked up all these picks in the draft, there's one last question I want to ask you for this pod. What do you think the overall strategy is going to be? Do you think it's QB at 2? What are they doing with 6 picks in the top 100? I mean, has that ever happened before? Or it probably hasn't happened very often. They're loaded with draft picks, which you love to see.
Yeah.
What do you think the strategy is going to be? How do you think they're going to attack this draft? Do they keep all the picks? Are they looking to trade up? What do you think's happening here?
I think they're trying to fix what is a fundamentally broken roster right now, and I think they're trying to pick up as many assets to give them as many options as possible. I know you're going to call your shot on a prediction, which I agree with, and I actually made that same prediction individually before we spoke. But I think they are trying to give themselves as many options to acquire what they need to acquire as possible. So if that's Caleb Williams, sure, but I think JP made a good point. I think one extra third round pick does not move the needle on that, honestly. So I'm not so sure that the Howell trade confirms that that's happening. Is interesting that Justin Fields hasn't been moved yet, though. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I think they're just trying to stockpile as much as they possibly can and use it for just building through the draft. I mean, that's where Peters does his work. Fred Warner, George Kittle, Hufanga, all middle round guys, studs.
Yeah, you can make an argument they have so many holes that you just keep the picks and pick the best players available, and to some degree a mix of best players available in positions of need if they're in similar spots on your board. There's just an argument for that. I called my shot. A lot of people are picking up on it. I think I was one of the first. Check the pods. Do your timestamps. Whatever you need to do. I think they're stacking those picks. I think they're going to stick at number 2, and I think they're going to trade up to get a tackle that they really like. Maybe
I agree,
late in the
100%.
first round, early in the second. I think they're going to package a couple, second and a third or something like that, one of those. And that's, they could package a second and third and still have a second and a third and move up into the first round and get that offensive tackle they really like. And I think that's the strategy, that left tackle position is most likely going to get filled. And maybe you do sign a Cornelius Lucas as an insurance policy, which I think would be smart. But that's it. And obviously it's going to be exciting, and we're going to get juiced about all the draft picks that we bring in to fill in the rest of the holes. And I got a feeling, I don't know, I just think Dami's prediction of 5.5 wins or better, as his over under, I think that's going to creep up. I'm kind of excited. I think this could be a competitive team in year one. Remember, last place schedule. That's all I'm going to say.
Yep. That's fair. That's fair. We got the last place schedule because we were 4-13 last year. Now almost nobody from that team is back, but still.
It might be a good thing.
Yeah, it has to be a good thing. It's certainly not a bad thing. But yeah, I don't know. I think you could see them move up as high as the top 10 again. I think you might even see them do something like what Houston did last year with Stroud and Will Anderson, where they're just like going to F it. We're going to get Joe Alt. And I'd be at that point, I'd be shirtless.
I'd be cool with it.
If that were to happen. I'd be shirtless because you've got generational talent at tackle in this draft. If you can go and you can go to 4 with Arizona, who's a team that's been rumored they're looking to get out. If you can go at, maybe 8 with Atlanta now that they've got a quarterback, maybe they're looking to get some value. If you can go make those
cost you like both number 2s or 2 3s and a 2 or something like that to go up that high.
Yeah,
I don't have the draft points board on me, but
2 from this year and 1 from next year, something like that. I would do it in a heartbeat for a guy like Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu from Penn State. They're both animals,
right.
But you have the Chargers there at 5 and you have the Titans there at 7 that both need tackles, so they're going to have to go up to 4. Anyways, I say we wrap this thing up. We'll probably do an actual mock draft later on.
Probably.
We will do an actual mock draft. I'm actually excited. This is finally like the draft class last year. Or no, man, we've been doing this for so long now. But this is one of the I think this is the most exciting draft class since our first year that we've been doing. Yeah. So I'm really excited to get into mock draft. If you can,
any more Jake Paul, Mike Tyson thoughts?
No, I got nothing else on that, man. Check out the short if you want to go see.
Yeah, that was fun. We'll have more to come in the future.
For sure, yeah. All right, well, let's wrap this thing up, Pop. I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Have another great week, guys.